Hello and welcome to another video in Foundations of Maternal and Newborn Health. In today's video, we're going to be continuing on the concept of inheritance that we talked about in the last video. And we're going to talk a little bit about a concept known as Mendalian genetics. Okay. So Mendalian genetics, again, Mendalian sounds like a scary medical term, but this is named after a person named Gregor Mendel. So it's not important to know his name or anything like that. He's just a person, and that's why they've called it Mendalian genetics. It was named after his discovery. Okay, so in the first genetics video, we talked a little bit about how DNA encodes for or tells your body how to make RNA, or the copy of the DNA, and then that copy of DNA is used to make protein. And the proteins are really what do all the things in your body. So they're the ones that have kind of all the functions. But your DNA in the chromosome form, not all of this DNA is used to encode proteins or to have instructions for proteins. Only some parts of the DNA, or some sequences of the DNA it's called. So some parts of the strand are actually what tell your body how to make protein. So these parts of the DNA that actually tell your body what protein to make, or the instructions for what proteins to make, these are known as genes, or a single gene. Okay, G-E-N-E. So we'll use this term throughout the genetics lectures, and this is specifically a portion of DNA that actually tells your body how to make a specific protein. So we're going to go through an example of eye color, and hopefully you can get an idea of how these genes actually make proteins that have an effect on how we look, or how we act, or whatever other bodily function that goes on. Okay, so the example is eye color. So let's imagine we're in a world where there's only two types of eye color, brown or blue colored eyes. If you have a brown gene, your eyes will be brown, or if you have a blue gene, your eyes will be blue. But it gets a little bit more complicated because we have two copies of every gene. And the reason for that is we have two chromosomes, one from our mother and one from our father. So again, we talked about this in the last video. We have one copy of a chromosome from our father, and we have one copy from our mother. And they both have the same genes that encode for the same proteins. So we have kind of two of every gene that we need. And so for eye color, you might imagine that there's a specific part of the chromosome that has the gene for eye color. So let's say it's on this kind of top right arm of the chromosome. So on the same spot on your mother's chromosome that you've received, you'll also have a gene for eye color. Okay? So the confusing part happens when your father's gene, or one of your genes, let's say, is telling your body to make brown eyes, and your mother's gene, or your other copy, is telling your body to make blue eyes. In this scenario, you might try to guess what would happen to your body. Would it make brown eyes? Would it make blue eyes? Would it make a mix of something in between brown and blue? And so in reality, your body actually makes brown eyes. And the reason is that the brown eye genes are called dominant. So these are dominant genes. And the blue eye is called a recessive gene. And what this means is that if there's ever a copy of the brown eyes gene, whether it's from your mother or your father, you or your baby will have brown eyes. So if there is a brown eye gene in the genome, or on one of the chromosomes from your parents, you'll always have brown eyes, no matter what the other copy is. If the other copy is also brown, great, you'll still have brown eyes. But if the other copy is blue, you'll still have brown eyes. So we can use a little bit of a shorthand or an abbreviation, and usually the dominant gene is given the capital letter. So in this instance, brown is B, so it's capital B. This encodes for brown eyes. And a little b would be blue eyes. So when we describe the genes that a baby has, we can use this notation of big letter and small letter. So if a baby has 2 brown eye genes, they have 2 capital B's, this baby will have brown eyes. So this means they got a copy from their dad that was for brown eyes and a copy from their mom that was for brown eyes. If the baby has a capital B, lowercase b, so 1 copy from either their mom or their dad is blue, and 1 copy from their mom or their dad or the other parent is brown, this baby will also have brown eyes. Okay, and then of course the last situation where both parents, both the mom and the dad, give the blue eye gene, this baby will of course have blue eyes. Blue eyes. So the recessive gene only shows if there is no dominant gene there to be more dominant, to overcome the recessive gene. So the blue eyes is only going to show up as blue eyes if there is no dominant gene, if there's no brown eyes gene there to work on top of it. Okay, so I want to go over one example with you where you maybe try to solve this yourself. So the example that we'll go through is for freckles. Freckles. So freckles are those little spots on your face, or I guess they can be anywhere on your body, but they're those little pigmented dots on your skin that form. And so freckles are actually dominant, so we'll say the freckles gene is dominant, and no freckles is recessive. So same as before, we'll say that the dominant gene is the capital F, so that's for freckles, and the no freckles gene is a lowercase f. Okay, so if a mother gives her baby 1 copy of the freckles gene and the father gives the no freckles gene to a baby, what do you think the baby will have? Will the baby have freckles or will the baby not have freckles? So you can pause the video and think about it for a second, and then we'll go through the answer. Okay, so the answer to this question is that the baby will have freckles. Freckles. And the reason is that because the freckles is dominant, this capital F, it will always show up no matter what the other copy is. So the baby had 1 freckles gene, and so the baby will have freckles. Okay, the other example we'll go through is big F and big F. What will that baby have? Freckles or no freckles? So again, big F, regardless of what the other gene is, this baby will have freckles as well. Okay, last example, 2 lowercase f's. So 2 no freckles genes. Will the baby have freckles or no freckles? Okay, in this case, of course, there's no freckles gene, so the baby will not have freckles. No freckles. Okay. So hopefully this makes sense. It's a very complicated idea, this idea of dominant and recessive genes, but hopefully these examples kind of made it clear why some people have some traits and other people's don't, and how you might inherit these traits from your parents. So if your parents have freckles, you're a lot more likely to have freckles than if your parents don't have freckles. And so in the next video, we'll talk a little bit more detail onto the probability of getting these traits or these genes from your parents, depending on what their genes are.